Hi everyone, this is Amitab. I am the founder CEO of Altigreen Propulsion Labs. We are an EV technology company based in Bangalore.
Nothing can stop an idea whose time has come. I'm sure you would have heard of this wonderful phrase, and this is most applicable for the sector of electric vehicles or EVs. After all, we are living in a world where the wealthiest man is the founder of an EV company, Tesla. In this episode of the Founder Thesis podcast, your host Akshay Dutt talks to Dr. Amitabh Saran, the founder of Altigreen. Altigreen is an EV startup focused on the category of commercial three-wheeler vehicles, and it has raised almost $50 million till date, with the Reliance Group as one of their major backers. Amitabh has an almost 2-decade-long journey as a serial entrepreneur, and in this conversation, he shares his process of finding startup ideas and scaling them up. He also talks about the importance of building products in India that meet Indian needs instead of blindly copying the West. Listen on, and if you like such insightful conversations with disruptive startup founders, then do subscribe to the Founder Thesis podcast on any audio streaming app.
Born and brought up in Lucknow and did my schooling at La Martiniere, Lucknow. Yeah, my dad was an IPS officer, so he did want me to join the government service. Definitely not the police, but perhaps an IPS officer.
So, what was your ambition?
I think I have always been a tinkerer. I like to work with my hands. My dad was like that. He taught me everything to know about electricity, about plumbing, about fixing things. So for us, when I went to the US for the first time, I realized that recycling was a big thing in the US. And then I was like, dude, matlab, yahan kabadi wale nahi hote kya? I mean, born and brought up in that culture, right, where everything is recycled, including jam bottles, jars.
Second life, third life, fourth life of everything. How did you land up in the US?
I did my BTech in computer science from REC Allahabad, which is now NIT Allahabad. It became National Institute of Technology. As part of that program, all the RECs converted to NITs. Did that, got an out-of-campus job at TCS.
TCS must have been like a small startup at that time, no?
So TCS, you'd be surprised. Actually, TCS started in 1969. When I graduated in 1989, it was a formidable company by then, but the focus entirely was on sending people abroad. There was very little that TCS used to do in India, very, very little. It was clear that they used to take us through a lot of training and they used to make consultants out of engineers. I was still, I think, 20 at that time when I joined TCS. So anyway, I did TCS for a bit. And my manager in TCS used to like me for whatever reason. He thought I was a decent bloke. He happened to quit TCS and he joined Philips in Singapore. And I was having my dinner and he calls up and he says, "Hey, you want to work in Singapore?" I said, "Yes." So anyway, did the legal process at TCS, joined Philips in Singapore. They posted me in Thailand. There was a large project for ATMs. This is 1980 and 1990. And they were building the largest network of ATMs in Thailand. And I was posted for that project. Started working there. It was fun time. So I think at some point I felt like I need to know more about computers and computer science. Just programming language ain't good enough, right? So that's when I decided to pursue a PhD. I said, let's go the whole hog. So I won't go there for a 1-year master's. I will try to dig deeper. I got this opportunity, applied in a few places, got a good reco call from the University of California, met a couple of people, got Santa Barbara campus. They were offering me, not just the PhD in computer science, but also a project that they were willing to give to me and all that. So it was good. TA-ship.
And then you would get some stipend or some salary also. No?
Yeah, so it wasn't a teaching assistantship, because teaching assistant, obviously it's a great thing, you're teaching kids, but I like teaching, but I think doing research was more my thing. And they were willing to offer me a project for research because by then I had about 3.5 years of experience in working with large systems, even through TCS and then with Philips and ATMs. And all these were new technologies, even in the US at that time. It wasn't like something, I'm talking about 1991. So they appreciated this industry ka student mil jayega free mein to get to work. So, but that at some point the Deshbhakt rises in you and you're like, no, I think I'll just do a job And so I joined Hewlett-Packard in Cupertino. And with them, I moved back to India in 98. So I was in the US from 91, 92 to 98. And so it's very interesting. And I always get goosebumps when I'm telling the story to people, but this is a real story. I'm at HP, and when you're a geek there and you want to hacker and those kinds of things, the usual stuff, you don't like attending these meetings, organizational development meetings and all this, because it's like, ज्ञान देंगे, ये company ऐसे management, this is how managers have to work. This is one of those things, ठीक है यार, we'll get good lunch during these offsites. I was attending this. I remember this presenter was someone who'd been to Machu Picchu and, Caucasian guy. And he was doing his best to obviously keep our attention going. Final day, he gives us a piece of paper and everyone's like, yeah, now this guy is going to ask us for ratings, review likho, aise likho. Anyway, he says, can I have your attention, please? And everyone looks up. And then he says, this piece of paper is going to be your epitaph. You guys are all dead. Whatever you write here will go on your tombstone. I want you to all start by writing, here lies with your name. And then mention, see again, I'm getting goosebumps again, what you want to be remembered for. Very clear on the for. It should not be what you want to be remembered as. I don't want to hear about, you were a good son or a good brother or a good father. No. What were your contributions on this planet because of which people should remember you? What do you want to be remembered for? Dude, I kid you not, man. I am getting goosebumps again. It's just incredible. That was the time you suddenly start thinking.
Well, what did you write in that?
So I think everyone has grandiose opinions about themselves. From what I remember, I think I was just so overwhelmed by that thing that, yeah, what is the purpose, right? I think I wrote something around, I have a disdain for the ordinary. It was more a description about myself than about the contribution that made, because when you really look into it, then you realize, me, ab kya matlab? So what if I made a network and people are able to use their ATM cards, or NASA scientists are able to do some computing? Everyone's working, man. It's not like, did you make a difference in someone's life? So my parameters to that are a little different, I guess. So I think I might have left most of the paper blank from what I remember. I might have written a couple of lines, but I think it just made me think too much and I think that was one of the reasons why I decided to move back to India. I did have aspirations of being able to do something in the social sector. I will have to influence people in my sphere of contact. And perhaps that led me to get into startups. So in 2000, I had the opportunity of, creating part of the founding team of a startup which was based out of Portland, Oregon. But the entire operation was in India. We were building software products for US and Europe market. I'm talking about, I returned to India in 98 when half of India was moving to the US for Y2K. But I'm back in India, and in those days, you could actually count product companies one hand. There was Tally. Product companies, very, very few. Infosys had Finacle. They were just building a Finacle. But everyone was working in the services industry. Very few known product companies. We were one of the few product companies. And we actually created, so this was Trivium.
What was the product of Trivium?
So we were into computer telephony. So this was the time when you call a call center, a screen pops up and there's
like VoIP.
Yeah. So voice over IP, computer telephony, customer relationship management, CRM system. So it's like when you call 1-800 number, that guy picks up and says, hello, Mr. Saran, how are you? How does he know that Mr. Saran is calling? Those days, everyone has landlines. Caller ID is there, and so the caller ID. So then what do you do with that information that Mr. Saran has called? So that's when we were working on integrating the base platform, if it's computers, if it's telecom industry, the base platform, along with the screen that says that you had last called us for this, was your problem not solved? So I'm certainly very happy that, yes, I am in good hands. Abhi phir se wo shuru ho gaya that, who are you? Yes, exactly. Who are you? When did you last call? Sir, I don't see it.
अब वो chatbots के through होता है personalization now.
Exactly. So it was a lot more personal. You could talk to people. They could make judgment calls and decisions on the phone, and they used to do that very effectively. That was nice. So we were building those kinds of systems, and our customer base was all in the US and Europe. And so we were doing a lot of did that for about 7-8 years. We were doing very, very good. I mean, we'd acquired other companies. We had 8,000 odd customers in US and Europe. So fairly large. So, at that point, I realized that, 7, 8 years, good enough. I was part of the founding team. So at some point, you feel like you want to do something new. Oh, hey, Ida. So that's when I started my next startup. It was in the consumer internet space. This was a company called Buzz in Town. It grew to be present with coverage of 18 cities in India and 19 cities in US and Canada. So the main starting point of this company was, this is 2007, 2006, 7. You ask someone, यार कुछ करते हैं. What is the default answer you get? Picture देखते हैं, खाना खाएंगे. It's like there is nothing else happening in your city but go for a movie and then have lunch or dinner or whatever it might be, right? And there's so much more channels of wholesome entertainment all around you. It's just that you don't have discovery is the largest problem there because not everyone is online. Again, I'm talking about 2007. I'm talking about India. I'm talking about 18 cities in India, where we were targeting. And we were saying, okay, we're going to be building a network which allows a lot of information on entertainment, lifestyle, and leisure options across this so that
This was the era when newspapers would publish events like concert happening here. And
yes. And if you see the top newspapers in the country, you would find event listings from buzzintown.com also, because all of that was being, so we were gathering it all together and we were supplying it to a lot of the afternoon editions and the morning editions. We were the ones who were supplying the most of the internet. We had created small, windows, and they would embed these windows in various portals. So we had 3 million subscribers and all kinds of things. Very, very neat.
what was the monetization for this? Like you wanted to, and before monetization, how did you collect the information? Was it crowdsourced, like user generated, or?
Yes. So in those days, this phenomenon of crowdsourcing was not there. Basically, you had to have teams presence, a lot of phone calling to each of these venues. So you organize events. So we used to organize ground events. We used to send people to gather information about all the venues. Because if I know all the venues, then I know what's happening at the venue, right? So our call center used to call up all these guys and
like in Delhi, you have India Habitat Centers.
India Habitat Center, City Fort, there's that Kalyan Auditorium. So there are about, in a larger city, there are about 50 good places. Obviously, there'll be mom and pop places over there. You can't get access to that. And that over a 5 or 6 year period, that we were able to create that also. But the idea also is that we need to get access to that. So go and get information about venues and then call up those venues and say, "Bataiye aapke yahan kya ho raha hai, what's happening, what's going on that." So, and then list those. So monetization was obviously advertising. That was a common thing for content-oriented platforms that day. We used to do a lot of ticket sales. So these events, then we started saying, "Oh, you have events. You want us to sell tickets for you?" And they were like, online, how does it work? What happens? At that time, Book My Show had started in those days. So there was, we used to work with them,
which was just cinema hall focused.
Exactly. And we were doing events. So it was very clear, the demarcation was very clear. We were like a combination, we were like a ticket master by anything. But then we said, hey, so it's clear that there are entertainment options, but people also eat food. The reality is that a lot of our outings are all around food. Ultimately, you will finally come down to locus jo hai wo restaurant hi hota. So can we find out a lot more options other than the usual movie theater mein jo on the food court? Are there other places, hole in the walls, that are very well known for specific things? So we started doing that. A lot of videos. We made a lot of audio and video content, which we also used to monetize the restaurants. And then we started on giving coupons for meals and also the fairly decent monetization. That was the time when also this started, Deal a Day. So there was this company, right, Groupon. So the same model started coming in India where you used to say, okay, so
yeah, Snapdeal started like that.
Snapdeal. And so this is the deal for the day. And so we have a lot of subscribers and they're all interested in entertainment. So I can give them a deal that says, hey, you know what, you could get, this meal for so much if you buy so many coupons. But we were the last entrant and the first to exit in that space. Nothing great about us, but we had the pulse of entertainment as far as India is concerned. And it was clear that the restaurants and whoever was giving the deal was actually bleeding. So they used to give it. It wasn't that they were making 50 and 60 and 80% margins. Man, no one is making that kind of margin anywhere in the world, but they were giving 80% off just so that customers would come in and taste the food. And hopefully they would like it so much that they would keep coming back.
And that lifetime value concept.
Unfortunately, that doesn't happen. Dude, anytime you get a discount, you go to that. अरे यार अभी तो वहाँ खाया था ये थाई वाले में नया डिस्काउंट आया आज थाई खा लेते हैं चलो भाई थाई खा लेंगे everyone was just looking for deals, so that repeat visitor was not happening for these poor guys, right? So it was a model that failed miserably. DuPont went public, but look at what happened.
Even Zomato struggled with their gold program.
No, all of them happened, and unfortunately, they had completely changed their model to only that, and hence there was a lot more struggle. In the case of Budget Town, this was one more thing that we were doing, but anyway, that aside, so we got acquired by Yatra.com, made an offer. So Yatra was trying to make their association with their customers a little more sticky. The idea is you buy a ticket, you have many options to buy an airline ticket, and once you bought the airline ticket, you don't think of Yatra, right? Ticket खरीद लिया मैं निकल गया.
Infrequent use case.
Correct. So is there a glue that you can have so that now Yatra knows that you're going to be in Delhi for X number of days, right? So can I tell you about what's happening in Delhi, hopefully arrange a taxi for you, take you to the venue, you're new in that city, till when can you depend on your friends? And we started doing that. I think that was the glue.
Was it a cash acquisition or stock?
It was a combined thing. Yeah. As a software company, I'd realized that to get funding for, this is back again, talking about 2000 was the first startup. The second one was 2007. Money is still not coming necessarily to these kinds of companies. Yes, there were very good examples of companies that were getting funded, e-commerce oriented. We were content play. We were different. It wasn't, there were a lot more companies and they're not even around at this point. But we were all in this fray together. It helped to have a US headquarters because everyone used to, so then funding became a little easier. Did that, acquisition happened. And I think after the acquisition,
like you've been in B2B throughout, and then suddenly you decide to open like a very hardcore consumer business which would need a lot of money to do customer acquisition, which would need money to build the supply of content. Like, what made you choose that? Like, why were you doing Buzz in Town?
A practical problem, which I was facing. We've just exited a startup. You're coming out. So by the way, I had made 3 portals. So I am one of those guys who doesn't do one at a time. For me, everything is 3. I strongly believe in the power of 3. It's not like the guy who shows up 4th in an Olympic event is no good. No. But people have a problem of remembering anything beyond 3. There is Buddha's 3-fold path. 3 का number है. You don't remember beyond 3. 3 चीजें होनी चाहिए. And मेरे लिए 3 is very important, right? So I do 3. I made 3 portals. And I went out to people and I tried to convince them. They were in 3 completely isolated domains. One was around salaries. I still believe that idea has a lot of merit. The other one was called Lighthouse. It was basically your neighborhood. It was hyper-local. And the idea was that there's a lot of information that's within your neighborhood. Who is the best carpenter, the driver in your neighborhood? ये वो आजकल WhatsApp पे शुरू हो गया है. But in those days, again, 2007, right? There's a lot of information. Who is a good driver? Should I hire him? I need to get my house painted. Who's a good painter? I mean, Asian Paint, Nerolac, and all these are recent things. A lot has changed in this country over the last 7, 8, 9, 10 years, right? So anyway, so that was the second portal. It was called Lighthouse. First one was around salary. And the third one was around lifestyle, leisure, entertainment. I built all 3. 2007, I had 3 portals. And then I went out and said, okay, guys, who's funding which one? Right? Everyone just came to entertainment because entertainment is the one that gets funded.
It was like that same portal lilo.
Like, literally. I went to each of to investors. It was very clear. I will be doing only one. So again, focus. There's no indigestion here. There is no question about running 3 portals, just one. Which one are you willing to fund? I'm very clear. These are 3 of my babies. I mean, they're in gestation stage. So I don't have a problem aborting them. But, and you say, okay, fine, let's do this. And they do invest and they gravitate towards entertainment. And I'm fine. I don't have a problem. So those 2 are out and entertainment it is.
And you raised the round before launching? You got a seed.
So yeah. So I built these 3 portals on my own money. And then when you start operations, I have certain counters that I need this much before I will start because that to me. So I am one of those guys who kind of uses investors as good sounding boards. So I will handpick my investors who will add value, because I do believe that entrepreneurs are driven and they'll end up making stupid decisions once in a while. So you need to have a good sounding board. And when a person gives you even 1,000 rupees, right? He wants to make sure that they use, forget about $1 million coming in, but they want to make sure that you're doing the right, as long as they are in it for the right reasons. If the reason is different, ki chalo aise hi bahane hai, I will be able to make 5 times, 10 times and all that, it doesn't happen at the seed stage. At the seed stage, all they're doing is, yes, good person, good team. I think the problem is large enough. The opportunity is large enough. I think he will be able to get the next round. So let me make sure that if you can find that, that is a very, very good investor who understands that I have to take him to the next round. What that round is, no one has created. But it's large enough, your face is good enough, pretty enough that they say, okay, fine, we'll do this. So that's what I ended up doing. To me, B2B, B2C, these are all things that demarcations that happened a lot later. But to me, it was another problem that we were fixing, and we had to hire the right kind of team, the right kind of people, and you can make wondrous things happen. I am very, very clear about this. That the team, people, it's all about people. It's all about people. It's not about anything. You get the right set of people. That's all that matters.
Why did you sell to Yatra? Was it that you did not see a path forward and in terms of raising funds and all of that?
Very good question. I think very few people have asked me this. So there comes a time when you realize that you started this with a mission. I think it's important somewhere, sometimes we entrepreneurs have this issue that we either get too attached, because there's always this thing, it's your baby, it's your baby, it's your baby. So you get attached to your creation. They forget that it's a business. So all the decisions start to tend to be made more emotionally than it's a business house. You have to extricate yourself from it and make the right decision. So two things happen at that time.
Yeah, what is good for the business?
What is good for the business? What is good for the translation of your vision with which you had started the company? I think that is very important. Sabka ek vision hota hai, kuch change karna hai, right? That's why do you become an entrepreneur? Not because you want to make a quick buck and exit from there. No, I think if you're doing that, know that you're doing that, and then focus and drive it towards that. It's perfectly all right, dude. There is no harm in doing it. But know that. Don't start then with a grandiose vision, but your ulterior motive is to make that million and run away. Don't mix the two, because then you'll mess around. So if you start with a vision, right, and then you're saying that, okay, what is the best path to get to that vision? So if someone was acquiring you and then not being able to take you to a place where you would have wanted to be taken, right, then you say that, maybe not the right thing to do. In our case, it was clear that e-commerce had started rising. This is 2011. E-commerce had started rising. We had two choices. We were a content portal, right? We were content. We have creative writers and we have creative teams and we're working on creating good content, and we have a good user base. So we have two options. One is we also pivot ourselves to become an e-commerce company. So that was one. Or the other is we tie up with someone who is willing to take this forward, this mission of spreading it around forward. So I think we chose the latter instead of pivoting to become an e-commerce company. And so in our case, we decided to do that. I think I have been passionate always about automobiles. Like I said, that IPS officer, so I've seen all kinds of Jeeps and vehicles and, all kinds of other things. So been around with them. Again, I'm talking about those days when we had Fiats and ambassadors and you had to apply for a Fiat, and 7 years later you would be called and you had a license that looked like a Reader's Digest book. It was that thick and would open in multiple, been through that era where, Saran Saab ne gaadi kharidi. It was like a talk of the town when you buy, literally. So as part of an IPS service, you see all kinds of vans and, all kinds of cars around. And so they've always fascinated engines, big engines, cars, all these have fascinated me. Environmental has always excited me. Perhaps after I had my own kids, it's something that I'm very, very conscious about. So both these have been passions. I think I had been waiting a lot for the hybrid vehicles to show up in India. This is, I'm talking about 2009-10. Was very excited when Toyota announced that it is going to bring the Prius into India. Yes. I mean, largest selling, I've driven it in California. Beautiful. amazing vehicle, right? And you're like, finally, India ka kuch hoga. It was introduced at a price point of 29 lakhs. At that price point, it's not going to make a dent in any shape, matter, or format. I'm talking about that India in 2011. 91% of India's electricity was coming from coal grids. 91%. But even then, I think 11 of the top 15 worst polluted cities of the world were in India. 11 of the top 20, yes. I think they were I think this was 2016, but I'm sure it was similar. 2016 की study थी और 2015 की IIT Kanpur की very big and very oft-quoted study. 1.2 million people lose their lives in India every year because of poor air quality. 25% is attributed to road transport. 25% is attributed to road transport. 3 to 4 lakh people lose their lives every year in India alone. Every year in India alone. We will not discuss this even on page 17 of our newspapers. COVID May was, please don't take me wrong, I've lost family in COVID. 1 lakh people died. National lockdowns. It has changed the way we think about our personal, interpersonal reaction, relationships. We wear masks, we do all kinds of things. 3 to 4 lakh people die every year and have been dying for the last couple of decades. Every year because of road transport related pollution, not just in India, across the world. Of course, India has the worst situation. People hate it when I say this, but COVID actually came as a boon from God. It helped save lives in our country. That was the year when fewer people have died on the road. This is a fact. I'm not even talking about the ailments that people have, or the lung problem, all kinds of other issues, of the cancers that are caused. I'm not talking about that.
Even road accidents came down.
Yeah. So and the incumbents have no interest in making change happen. You must realize this. I mean, this is not an Indian phenomenon across the world. Dieselgate was not an India-oriented scam. Dieselgate, if you remember, 3, 4 years back, it happened. Volkswagen was the one that was like a slap on the wrist to say, oh, you've been doing this. And then pretty much all the big automobile companies across the world started showing up saying that, yes, they had sent wrong data, or yes, they had done a little bit of that, little bit of that. Every company, pretty much the largest of the large companies, were involved in some shape, matter, or form of trying to modify results to make sure that they could sell more polluting vehicles on the road. It's a fact. Because you've invested thousands of crores of rupees in setting up petrol, diesel, LPG, CNG infrastructure. How can you walk away from it? And it's not just that infrastructure. I mean, their workshops, their employees working in workshops. There is an entire green market of parts. I mean, ऐसा नहीं है कि suddenly आप ऐसे change कर दोगे. There's a reason why every time the government announces and says that there should be more electrification, the people who will stand up and oppose it are the ones who are incumbents. So the fear shows up. This is 2011, May, June. I am down and making an exit. All that is happening. And I'm beginning to think, okay, I should be doing this. I'm very disappointed that something like this is happening.
So one question, you wanted to you thought you should get into mobility and electric vehicles specifically, or just like hybrid vehicle? Because maybe the Tesla was probably not even like a known name.
Not even something that was being considered at that time. No, absolutely. Oh, so it was clear that something has to be done, and you'll be surprised of how things played out. This is late 2011. I'm playing golf with some buddies. I mean, I'm not very good at it, but my handicap is probably a few thousand. And I'm cribbing.
You're cribbing about the price at like 30 lakh.
Yes, and here I'm cribbing away your gadi. So in classic Panju style. तो तू क्यों नहीं कर लेता? क्या सही बता रहा हूँ. तो तू गाड़ी बना ले. This is when the thing stuck. This is the problem. Everyone says it is not their problem. It is someone else's problem. By the time we came back from the day from the golf course, it was Sunday. It was nearing afternoon. I was sitting behind. I remember those two guys were sitting in front. I was sitting in the rear seat. And I just came forward between the two guys. And I did this. अब गाड़ी बना के रहूंगा देख लें. So the vision of Altigreen when we started and has been there since then is carbon-free transportation. And it's clear to us that even if all vehicles become on that first day of February 2013, if they all become electric, still the people will continue to die because vehicles are becoming progressively older and more polluting as time passes. And if they are dying because of the vehicles that are there already, I'm not fixing that problem. So they will continue to die. It's just that the newer vehicles that are going to show up are going to be electric. This is in case if all of these vehicles convert to electric. So then we said, okay, so place where we need to fix this is going to be on existing vehicles. We said, okay, electrification is going to be key. We were very clear that alternate fuels are obviously easier to use because you already have existing systems, but electrification of transportation is going to happen. Electric vehicles are a lot more simpler, and I can get into a long monologue on why electric, but electric vehicles are a lot simpler. The classic example of 2000 moving parts in a combustion engine vehicle versus 17 moving parts in an electric vehicle. So they're a lot simpler. And the engine and the motors are themselves very efficient. A combustion engine operates best case scenario at 25% efficiency. Best case scenario.
25%. What is this 25%? How, what does it show?
If you like to hear stories of founders, then we have tons of great stories from entrepreneurs who have built billion-dollar businesses. Just search for the Founder Thesis podcast on any audio streaming app like Spotify, Gaana, Apple Podcasts, and subscribe to the show.
So the fuel that you're burning and the objective of your vehicle, which is transportation. So what is the energy that you consume, the fuel that you burned, and what percentage of that was helping in moving you to your final destination, which is mobility, right? You use a car for mobility. You don't sit in a car to say, thanda karegi car, air conditioning ke liye baithta hu. Car kharidi hai because I can't buy an air conditioner for our home. So I'm just sitting in a car and I just enjoying it. You don't do that, right? Transportation is the need. So how much of that energy is converted to moving forward, right? So 25% is best case. I'm talking about good cars, global cars, and 25% efficiency. And electric motor, 90% efficiency. Huge difference, right? I'm talking engine to engine. Huge difference. So it's very clear that, you need to have electric mobility. वो तो होना ही है. Electric, the drivetrain has to be electrified. That's where we started. And we said, okay, let's start working, taking baby steps towards electrification. So now you start thinking, okay, so 2012, we had done some work. I was able to find a very good set of people. He's a PhD in control engineering. He was 6 years junior to me in Santa Barbara, and he's a Norwegian-American guy. 6 years my junior, just happened to become friends with him. I was in fact taking one of his labs, and anyway, that's also a long story. But he was the only guy who I remotely knew was connected to automobiles. I don't have anyone who I know. So I called him up. I said, dude, I want to do something in this space. What kinds of things can we do? And so that's when the conversation starts. So we've been doing some background work, trying to figure out whether electrification, what kind of power needs does the country have? So we had instrumented my passenger car. I still remember. He said that, why don't you give me some drive profiles from India? Now, today, this word has become very common because you have your own application on the phone.
What is this meaning of this word, drive profile?
So the idea is, how do people drive, which means how much power do they consume? How much do they accelerate? How much do they use the brake pedal? What is going on in a car in India? Today, you have GPS applications that are written on your phone. You can reverse compute these kinds of things. But in 2011, nothing like that exists, right? So he sent me potentiometers from the US, and I instrumented my own Honda car, much to my wife's dismay. But we did that. And she's like, dude, kya kar rahe ho? To ek aur naya natak apna chalo kar diya. Remain in the software domain, right? No, we're going to save the planet, dude. Be proud. And I'm telling 2011, my daughter was 4 years old. I'm trying to convince her that your dad is going to save the planet. And she's like, what does save mean? What is planet? I'm like, yeah, just trust me on this. But anyway, so I'm instrumenting the car. I'm sticking all kinds of things on the gas pedal and on the accelerator, on the brake, on the clutch, and then so I record some data, the data access, and all the data has been recorded, how I'm pressing each of these pedals for how long I'm pressing. So I send these over to Lhasa. A data file gets created. I have a laptop running there, and I'm driving around in Delhi. I send this file to Lhasa, and Lhasa then calls me up late night, morning for him, and says, dude, who was driving? I said, no, I was driving. So what happened? You used to drive really well when you were here in California. I was driving, and I see what happened to you, dude. So I said, why? What happened? Dude, I really thought that this person should be hanged because they have no clue of how to drive. It's like all over the place. You accelerate, brake, accelerate, brake, accelerate, brake. That's all you're doing. So I said, this is life in India.
This is city driving in India.
Yeah, you're driving slowly. First of all, speeds are very low, and then you're being cut off by something, a cyclist, a motorcyclist, there's a bus that shows up, there's a cow on the street, all kinds of things are going on. If nothing else, there might be a speed breaker. Indian speed breakers are really, what is a speed breaker? I said it's equivalent to a stop sign. But in a stop sign, you may run a stop sign. You don't run a speed breaker in India because we have built like inverted U's. It's not like a gradual thing. So in Europe, they call them sleeping policemen because you're going over it. But here they're like inverted a U-shaped, dome structure. You have to come to a dead stop and then you will climb. So anyway, so I said, these are realities. We don't like people to drive fast, and hence we make sure that there are enough speed breakers on the road. We don't appreciate when people drive fast. A lot has changed in the last 5-6 years. People are today willing to discuss higher speeds on highways. Our roads have become a lot better. I'm talking about 2011. No. So he says there's a lot that can be done because it's clear that you do accelerate, deaccelerate, accelerate, deaccelerate. And that's why this whole concept of regenerative energy. Every time you deaccelerate, you are wasting energy that you had consumed to accelerate the vehicle. Now you deaccelerate by braking. What's happening when you brake? The kinetic energy is converted to heat in your brake pads, noise and heat. That is why you have a screeching noise and your engine vibrates and the hood vibrates. All these are law of conservation of energy, right? That same kinetic energy is converting to different forms of energy, vibrational, torsional, all kinds of things. Vehicle skids, the screeching line. So all that is there. Is there a way we can convert that energy into electric energy? So the whole idea is 91% of electricity comes from coal grids. It would be wrong to create an electric vehicle that is running purely on electric if I'm going to be charging it from the coal grid. And hence, is there something we can do on existing vehicles and convert that waste energy, that 25%, that 75% of waste energy? Can I convert part of that to electric energy and use that to boost my vehicle? So very, very noble thing. We started working on it, but the idea was we will create the electric system. Now, we started looking at sourcing components again.
And this is what a hybrid vehicle is, right? Like this is what Prius would also be doing, that capture that braking power, the waste of energy due to braking.
And the Prius, you're absolutely right, but the Prius is built as a dual energy vehicle, right? It's built with there are two transmissions. There's electric and there is this, and then there is some way in which power to the wheels is given through two different systems. Obviously, Toyota masters this, right? It's not easy to build a dual transmission vehicle, but they've done it. Different forms of wheels, also electric first, and then, an engine as a backup, or an engine that drives in the beginning, and then you do electric. So there are different things that happen. Hence, there are different forms of hybrid electric vehicles. We were saying that we will build an electric system that can be retrofit on existing petrol diesel vehicles, converting them to hybrid. My expertise is in building the electric system that can be small enough that can be retrofit in a car. So now, okay, so this is a very noble thing. Okay, let's start looking at motors, and then you realize that motors, ये तो engine में लगेगा motor. The engine is like, the ambient temperature inside the engine is like 100 plus degrees. This is the ambient. If you touch the metal, it's like 200.
Yeah, you can't touch a...
Yeah, 200 to 300. There's ignition happening multiple times a minute. There is combustion happening inside that. You can imagine the heat there, right? So it's a very different thing that you have to build. And then we realize that we will have to build these technologies. India is a very different beast. It's not something that you can just bring from another geography and put it inside a vehicle. I'm a big proponent of this, that it's high time that people started looking at India as a market, not just to say that, okay, I built this for Europe, but India should be able to use it. वो नहीं होगा, boss. My geography, my needs are very different compared to the rest of the world. Anything that is considered abuse in the world is a day-to-day scenario in this country as far as mobility is concerned. And hence, you need a very different kind of vehicle. Diesel, petrol has been around for 100 years. We've been used to that. And the vehicles have been made so well that they're able to allow all these kinds of freedoms to be given to people. You can overload, you can run inside water, over water, and it works, right? It keeps running. They figured that part out. So electrical technology also has to reach that place where it will allow us to do that. So that's when we said, okay, we'll have to build our own motors, our own controllers. They have to be built small enough because, okay, so you say that, okay, who are going to be my consumers? And then you realize, well, it's not going to be people who are driving 22 kilometers a day, which is what 22 or 30 kilometers a day, which is what a typical passenger vehicle runs in our country. Right? We were targeting four-wheelers, and it has to be something different. It has to be people who are driving, 250, 300, which is a taxi. When you look at the taxis that are present in the country at that time, most of them are diesel. And, the top guys, the Suzuki Desire, Tata Indigo, and the Toyota Etios, those kinds of vehicles. Then you open the hood of the engine, and then you realize, isme motor kahan fit hogi? Because it's like there's hardly any breathing space inside that thing, and it's big, so it's not like a small petrol engine. So then you need to miniaturize everything, and then create that miniaturized thing. Then typically miniaturization is also associated with software thing. It's a tiny watch, so you have to be careful. It should not do this, it should not fall, whatever, right? XYZ. But in the case of a vehicle, it has to go through the abuse. So your electrical system has to be very nice, and so we started doing that. We started doing a lot of innovations and making miniaturized good products. And we did a lot of work in there to create the electrical foundation that could be retrofit on existing vehicles, converting them into electric hybrids. And we were giving anywhere from, depending on the type of vehicle we were building. This was also used for small trucks. So depending on the kind of vehicle, we were giving anywhere from 11, 12% all the way up to 33%. There are reports that were published in the Times of India, in Economic Times, where our customers were standing up and saying that they're seeing this kind of benefit.
How many years did it take you to start doing beta testing?
So the first year was in the US, 2012. This is before the company was founded. We took our first round of funding around December 2012, January 2013. If I remember correctly, it was a little under $1 million. That was a seed. Before that, all the expenses were done by me. But in any case, we started doing that. We laid the foundation of the company in January 2013. And in 2012 itself, we'd actually started filing patents. We were very clear that innovation is going to be key. And if we are innovating, I don't want it to be an afterthought. If I'm doing something new, I want the world to know that India can also innovate in EVs. Why should we not? And it's clear that we're driven out of India for India. So we'll do that. So we started filing patents. And, the obvious thing, you file a patent in India and everyone just nods. You tell someone you're a patent in India, everyone just nods their head. And you say, well, I have 6 patents in the US. And then, what's that? Oh, patent in the US. But it's also, things are changing. But the idea for us, we today have 26 global patents that are being granted to us, not applied, but granted to us. Once again, the idea is not that we want to create a moat and tell people you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this, but to kind of communicate to the entire planet that our geography needs innovation. I'm not saying that I build better motors than the best manufacturers in the world. No, they build much better stuff. All I'm saying is that if you need to build something from my geography, you will have to innovate. And we are using some of the innovations that we have done for matching the needs of this geography in this patent. And it has been globally accepted that these are innovations that have been done. That's all we are doing by saying, proving the point that you need to innovate if you need to deliver this. And there's a reason why we're building the most efficient systems and the best vehicle. I think in December 2013 is when we had tested our first version, beta version of the kit. We called it High Pixie.
So that's pretty fast, like within a year.
So no, but we've done all our groundwork in 2012. So we knew exactly what we needed to build. And 2013, with the funding, we started off by rolling out, starting to build our first motor. It was very, very difficult. We were clueless. We had no idea of how this is done. But, you have a drive. You start meeting people, start figuring out how motors, what is the network, how do you go. I remember as co-founders, then Dr. John Bangura joined us. He is a PhD in electromagnetics. He knows only rotating machines. That's all he knows. Shalendra Bitfilani, I'm Amitabh, finance and manufacturing background. So this was the perfect combination: software, control engineering, which is the hardware electronic software. Then you have motors, and you have a finance and manufacturing guy. perfect combination. Four guys got together. Again, a message to entrepreneurs, you know, it's perfectly all right if you're just one, but typically I've noticed that, it's very difficult to balance a stool on just one leg. Try to have more than one people with complementary skills. Don't be afraid of sharing your wealth, your whatever, your ownership. Share the stake with them. Make them feel proud that they're also part of the founding team. It will help you in the long run. Again, you're driven by a vision. If the vision is make money, it's a different thing. But if the vision is we need to change something, we need to do this because we want to save people's lives. Today, the employees of Altigreen, you ask any one of these guys, the vision is that we might not be surgeons, but we can still save lives. We're doing this because we want to leave behind a better planet. Otherwise, no one joins a startup company that is working out of a garage when they have to leave their cushy jobs in air-conditioned buildings. I mean, startup electric vehicle, there's a lot to do with software stacks, embedded software, embedded cards. It's a different beast. So anyway, so we had our first beta.
What is the product? Like it's replacement to the combustion engine?
So it's basically a kit which has a motor, a controller, some electronics, a lot of power conversions, a battery pack, and it is retrofit in the vehicle. So you take your regular, let's say a Suzuki Desire, and you have your electrical system that you embed in it. It has to be done in such a way that it doesn't interfere with the vehicle at all. So whatever is happening to the diesel engine continues to happen, but you are taking inputs and you are somehow being in a position to assist the engine. So the engine has its own efficiency and non-efficiency zones. So you are trying through the energy that you have recuperated, you're trying to change a little bit of the dynamics of the engine so that it's always, or you're trying your best to run it at the most efficient zone and just stick to that. It's obviously IP, what we do in it, but the idea is that you do something like that. And that's what we were doing. And we were getting an improvement of anywhere from whatever, 12, 13, 40% all the way up to 33% improvement. So we did that. It was a great thing. We had, I should have said alpha version by December 2013. We had probably a good beta in 2014, December. In 2015 is when we went to ARAI to get a type approval of this as a kit. So now,
what is ARAI?
ARAI is the Automobile Research Association of India, which is where this is the apex body that decides all the rules and regulations. So what happens in a vehicle? So everything from your steering wheel and the headlamps and the motors and the tires and everything in a standard vehicle is controlled through a set of AIS, which is Automotive India Standards. And those standards, the apex body for this is ARAI. They're based in Pune, amazing people. They set all these standards. There is BIS, there's all kinds of things, the Bureau of Standards and all that. But they are the ones that deal with the automotive side. And they will say, well, you have to cater to this. Very, very nice people because we were able to work with them. India is amongst, I'm saying few countries. I don't know of any other country, but I don't know it's India. India is one country that has an entire standard for hybridizing vehicles. We were part of that team, which also helped in
because of the CNG wave.
Yes. So CNG was one, but we were part of the wave that also kind of moved it not just to CNG, but to electric. So the whole concept of electric hybridization, we are one of the few countries that has an entire standard for it. We did that. So this is 2015 is when we got the type approval for it. And that's when we started working with a lot of customers. So we started working with the real customer, doing customer trials with them. We did not want to do anything illegal. So we've never wanted to do any customer trials on kit and technology that had not been approved by ARAI. So we did that. And then we started customer trials. These were with various companies, in cab companies, transportation companies were using these vehicles. We had type approval for many vehicles. I think it was very well accepted, but at some point, I think we realized that we were a thorn for some of the OEMs because we were kind of delaying the buying decision of a new vehicle for a driver, right? I mean, if we were improving the efficiency of an older vehicle, then the driver would say, "Acha, chalo, 2 saal baad kharidunga, jaldi kya gaadi kharid." And because a typical driver would change his vehicle because the efficiency has come down and now the mileage has reduced to an extent where, the math is not working out for him. So perhaps that was one of the reasons. We also realized that in some cases, the drivers were driving an owner's vehicle. And there they used to make money out of perhaps some amount of fuel pilferage. Now, when I introduce an electric system which has telematics in it, again, new things in those days as telematics, I can tell you exactly how much a vehicle was driven, how many times did it stop, why it stopped at a gas station. I mean, all that thing is clearly documented.
Okay, so the device was IoT enabled. That which you.
It had, yes, everything was. So obviously, a PhD in computer science at the helm of the company. कुछ तो करूंगा यार, मतलब. So software has always been a very key and integral part of anything that we build.
And this was a one size fits all device like that.
India, you're not allowed to do that. So you have to have it customized, because once again, I can't change anything in the vehicle. That was our motto. You can put it inside and you can remove it. Nothing happens to your vehicle. Obviously, there might be a couple of holes here and there, just to hold that thing together. But other than that, we would not. So everything had to be customized according to the vehicle that we were building. So we had type approvals and trials for many kinds of vehicles that were being used in different segments. So whatever it be, at the end of the day, we built this. People were at awe. We displayed it. They just appreciated it too much. And I think the OEM started coming forward to us. Now we are in the retrofit business, right? Which is very difficult. You're having to convince a driver that this will bahut acha rahega, to you'll save money. Or going to a fleet and trying to convince them that this is the right thing to do.
It's a hard sell.
It's a very hard sell. It's not easy, because once again, you're talking about he having to make the investment, he or she having to make it, or someone having to do something. What happens to the warranty? All the vehicles are out of warranty anyway, so that kind of. We were bringing in warranty ourselves. We did the entire 9 yards. We were getting financing, all kinds of things we did, right? But by that time, the OEM.
And what was it priced at? Like for converting a vehicle, what would it?
So this was overall. For a typical vehicle, it would be 75,000 rupees. So you have a 6 lakh rupee vehicle and you put a 75,000 rupee this thing. You would need to change the batteries. These were lead acid batteries. You could change them every 3 years. The investment was another 15,000 or maybe a little less. 10,000 when we were doing it along with a very good OEM partner. Excite was our OEM partner. So we built batteries for them. So all in all, it was actually a good thing. I do feel that probably at some point in the future, we will have more of an hybridization thing. I'm already seeing baby steps towards that. But anyway, we were very clear that the mission is to save lives, and the mission is to make sure that we are working on electrified transportation, whether retrofit or not. At that point, the OEM started showing up and they said, there's no point in fighting about these things, and let's get over our differences. Why don't you help us in making electric drivetrains for our future electric vehicles? You've built this wonderful system, and in closed doors, they would actually say, Dr. Saab, we tried really hard. We have been doing this for the last 6 to 8 years. We have not been able to do what you guys did in the last couple of years. So we know that you are technologists, you're good guys. Why don't we work together on doing this? So we were very excited. It was sahi hai boss. Here I was trying to sell to so many people. Now I will just sit here. I will talk to OEMs. I will make good electric drivetrains for them. And we will be millionaires very soon. And all vehicles will become electric. And, we are fixing everything. And so I'm going to the root, the source. And from there, fixing that, and everything becomes okay. We had contracts from 2-wheeler, 3-wheeler, 4-wheeler, and, farm equipment tractor manufacturers to build such drivetrains for their future vehicles. Extremely excited.
This was a research contract, or was it a manufacture and sell?
Yes, this was actually a manufacturing contract to say that we will obviously expedite the development for you, for your drivetrains. We will own the IP for these drivetrains because this is this. But the objective is that we will supply you with manufactured drivetrains, because it takes a different amount of expertise, and you as conventional combustion engine guys don't have that. We will be providing you this.
Like Maruti used to put Fiat's diesel engine because they didn't have in-house diesel.
That of course, yeah. I mean, Maruti, Tata, all these guys used to do the same thing till they built it. Or for example, Maruti in the beginning used to have this Subaru's air conditioning equipment, the HVAC system and that blue button from Subaru's, right? So we were just saying that. Now, for the drivetrain, it was a different thing. We would be making full electric drivetrains for their future full electric vehicles. And hence, we have the contract from 2-wheeler, 3-wheeler, 4-wheeler, and farm equipment manufacturers. We are rolling in money for the first time. We are seeing revenues coming in, interaction with OEMs. We make these drivetrains, patents are flowing in, all kinds of very good things are happening. And then we start shipping them these prototype drivetrains on their vehicles. We start testing them. And then we realize that the incumbents, it's important for them to show that they're working on electric vehicles, but the end objective is not to convert very quickly. My drive is to make change happen tomorrow. My drive is not to wait for the next 10 years to do this, right? They're looking at the infrastructure and tens of thousands of crores they've invested, their investors and their shareholders and what they expect growth, and that is not going to happen. Their fear that electric vehicles will cannibalize their existing business. It's not that suddenly their market share will increase from X% to Y%, where X will continue and Y will get added to it. They're very practical, they're very good, they're very sane people. And so it became very clear to us, boss, all said and done, this is not going to be expedited by them. And Tesla was a classic example. Tesla was voted as the best vehicle ever made, not the best electric vehicle ever made. The best vehicle ever made is by a company that was led by also a computer science geek, right? So we say that, boss, I'm talking about, we are already in 2018. 2019 and 2018. And we said that, guys, enough is enough. Okay, if it takes to become an OEM, we'll become an OEM. So we made a full electric two-wheeler, a full electric three-wheeler, and full electric four-wheeler. And we made them and we put prototype, once again, the power of three. I made these three, put them out for people. I said, guys, you're going to be using them. It's clear to me that so a couple of things that happened in Altigreen, we would focus on the last mile transport segment. Any change that happens at the bottom end of the pyramid for India, it doesn't happen at the top. The US and the Western economy, they start with the best vehicle ever built, ludicrous mode, 650-mile range, winged doors, all kinds of things. And people, are in between awe and disbelief. Whoa, don't rocking. Right. And you start looking at it. And finally, what you are selling is a $35,000 bike. Right? It happens top down. But Hindustan may everything. And when I say Hindustan, India and the emerging markets, South Asia, Africa, South America, very similar profile, right? You bottom up. You focus on the bottom end of the pyramid. The guys who have the least money are the ones who will first start taking the risk, right? Because it has some financial gains from them. India is a country which has the most famous ad campaign of Kitna Deti Hai. Maruti Nando ad campaign, very, very famous. It's a reality in our country, and I'm very proud of the fact that we're conscious about our spending. There's no harm in doing that. We're not stingy. We spend a lot of money, but we're conscious about money that we spend, right? So this is good. So we're part of that. Yeah, we're part of that. So we have to do something like that. So I built these, I put it out, and I say, guys, you take your pick. You tell me which one you're willing to bet on, which one you're willing to sign up for customers.
This was to logistics fleet operators.
Yes. So this was to the general public. Obviously, I am talking about two-wheelers, three-wheelers, and small commercial four-wheelers, largely commercial. We were clear that commercial guys are the first to adopt because they are seeing benefit. They have no attachment to the vehicle. Is not a driver owner willing to take the risk. And so most of these guys came forward and said, you need a three-wheeler. This is the right thing. Now, we've done a lot of things. We've done a lot of research by then. We've spoken to 1,500 odd guys to figure out what their needs were, how much they were driving in diesel. We were clear from day one, when we make a vehicle, it has to compete with diesel. My competition is not other electric vehicles. I do not want to hear we are better than that guy and we are better than that. We are better than not better. It has to compete with diesel. Apples to apples, they're both there. Can it do everything that diesel can do? I'm a technologist. I have to make sure that I never give him a vehicle which is a compromised vehicle. Switch this off, don't do this. Why did you do overloading? Nothing. He drives the vehicle in a certain way. We know how he drives, what he needs. He's figured out the economics first. Don't try to preach to him. He's figured it out. Give him that respect that he deserves, right? Let him do it. So that's when we said that, okay, we'll have to build. And hence, a lot of innovation started happening even in that. So it's not just about making the tiniest motor and the lightest motor. Boss, this guy is going to overload by 30, 40, 50, 100%. He needs it to run for 10 years. Can you guarantee that? Right? Give it a link, right? It has to be serviceable. You don't throw away things in our country, right? It will be rewound. It has to be serviceable. It has to be manufacturable. There are lots of things that you have to cater to. It has to run in 50-degree ambient temperatures in Rajasthan also. You're not making it for Bangalore alone. So a lot of things that are obvious. It has to be able to run underwater. There will be waterlogging, stagnation, all kinds of things that will happen. There will be dust, pothole, pebble. It has to be environmentally sealed. Like I said, anything that is considered abuse anywhere in the world is a day-to-day scenario in the country. If I cannot create an electric vehicle that does that, I am not in the market. I don't want to be in the market. That's what we did. We looked at everything. And hence today, the three-wheeler that we have, the delivery vehicle, we focused on three-wheelers because that is what people were willing to bet on. But our vehicle today has the longest range on a single charge. It's been ARAI tested at 181 kilometers. But on the road with all kinds of adverse, कुछ भी कर ले यार तू load it the way you want to load it, drive it with your foot off a brake pedal to whatever 120 kilometer मिलता है. Why 120? Because in our 1500 vehicles that we spoke to, they typically said 80 to 100 kilometers दिन में चलाता हूँ. With overflowing diesel that is available anywhere and everywhere, he's driving 80 to 100 kilometers. So I need to give him that thing. Okay, one more saying. I am not in the transportation business. I am in the peace of mind business. I need to ensure that he never thinks that he has to stop for 5 hours to charge the vehicle. No. Boss, tu jaise murgi chalo. Mast raho. You focus on your business. This thing is going to run with you, for you the entire day. All I ask for is 3.5 hours of charging. Bas. So we made a faster charger that allows him to charge in 3.5 hours on a regular 220 volt 16 amp socket. I'm saying that you will be able to drive comfortably up suddenly because it's electric. You start saying, no, sir, I'm going to drive 200 kilometers to bike. Diesel mein nahi chala raha, right? Why do you suddenly want to drive 200 kilometers a day? So we are doing this. So longest range on a single charge. It has the highest volumetric capacity. So we realized that India is moving away from last mile delivery, has moved away from tonnage to volumetric. You buy a tiny little cell from Amazon and it comes in a large package, right? Now, yes. So it's all become volumetric. So we need to support a larger volume. They are using bigger vehicles because they want, that's the only vehicle that they can get which can support this volume. We created a vehicle that can give you 90% of what you can load on a on a four-wheeler platform, on a small commercial four-wheeler platform. So typically it's 192 cubic feet that you get in a typical small commercial vehicle. On a three-wheeler, you can get 177 cubic feet. It's the largest that you can possibly think of, as long as you're within the limitations posed by the government of India as far as standards are concerned. You will never do anything that is against it. We created that, but you have to create a vehicle that allows it to be supported.
How did you create that? Like you made it longer and wider? Or?
Yes, but within the norms, but we had to see three-wheelers, the genesis hua tha from passenger vehicles. And then they created, on the same platform, they created a cargo vehicle. So we built a platform that was high. Once again, peace of mind. So chinta na gaya, debris road mein, eete, kankar, don't worry about it. Plus water logging, don't worry about it, right? You just drive. So we have to make structural changes in the vehicle. We built independent suspension things that we made changes in the vehicle to support that. But these were the needs. So focus on the customer need and build something against that. That's what we did. And today, we're present in 9 cities. We have eligibility to sell in 14 states of the country.
When did the vehicle project get launched? 2019, you decided to become an OEM, right?
An OEM, but we had built our first three-wheeler, electric three-wheeler in 2018. We launched our first branded vehicle in January of 2021, 3 years later. Most startups who started creating vehicles have not been around for 3 years. We tested a three-wheeler for 3 years, made sure that it was something that would compete with diesel. That's the genesis of this company. We started selling in January 2021. Obviously, COVID hit very quickly. But anyway, we started building on that. We have amongst the best customers on board. Most of the e-commerce companies were using our product. And then we realized that now it's a question of scaling. We've proven our vehicles. They've been running for over 12 months in different geographies. So like I said, 9 cities. So we were not saying that we proven ourselves in Bangalore, lekin Delhi mein to chalaya nahi, kya hoga? So across India, north, south, east, west, we've driven them. Some vehicles have done 25, 30,000 kilometers on them already. They were performing very well. Obviously, there will be teething issues. I'm the first one to, in fact, I had a very long article that I wrote for Economic Times only because of this reason that, don't be afraid of failures. Don't call them failures. They're breakdowns that happen. Innovation will happen. You can, any geography, any sphere that you be, if you are afraid of innovation, afraid of failure, afraid of these things, you can never innovate. I was taking the Clayton Christopherson analogy of saying there is a sustaining innovation versus disruptive innovation. Disruptive innovators will cause great things to happen, but of course, there will also be failures and breakdowns that could happen. And hence, don't be afraid of that. Just make sure that as part of your planning process, you know how to take hold of it, so the customer's livelihood that is depending on you. Hence, we call our vehicle also, our vehicle is branded NEEV. It's new energy electric vehicle, of course, but NEEV, it is the foundation of a person's livelihood. We are cognizant of it. We are not saying that, boss, it is very good for the planet. Planet you're making more money. Today, our vehicle, because it gives 120 kilometers of uninterrupted mobility to Jaisa Cha Chala Le. We have an office in Mysore. We routinely drive our vehicle Bangalore-Mysore. And still there is 22% charge that is still left. So it does 150 kilometers. But anyway, that aside. So
what is the economics for a driver? How much money does it save?
Yeah. So very clear, a typical diesel auto will take anywhere from 4 to 4.5 rupees a kilometer. A typical NEEV, you'll be able to get around 80 paisa a kilometer.
Is there a difference in the one-time payment?
Yeah. So what we realized is that all commercial vehicles are financed. No one pays cash down. So there is only a down payment that you have to give. So you pay a down payment. That down payment has to be identical in both cases. That is number one. Number two, then you have a monthly cost that you have to bear, which is the cost of diesel and the EMI, right? I have to make sure that this combined thing has to be a lot in the favor of the electric vehicle. And we were able to do it very peacefully, even when he replaces the battery. And obviously, we have now investment. We raised a 300 crore round. So every investor has gone through the math. And it is very clear there is a TCO benefit over an 8-year period, even with a battery pack replacement. The TCO benefit is going to be up to 50%.
TCO stands for total cost of ownership.
Total cost of ownership. So that includes the EMI that he has to pay. That includes the diesel or the fuel cost that he has to bear, the maintenance that he will need to do if the battery replacement has to be done over the lifetime of a vehicle. We said the lifetime is going to be 8 years. See, now things are changing. I'm telling people, why do you have to run a vehicle for 10 years? Why? Give me a good reason, right? And you're saving. And those were commercial vehicles. Right? As long as on a monthly basis, earlier what was happening is and most of these drivers are making 12,000, 13,000 rupees a month. If I can ensure that you're making 20,000 rupees a month, suppose, if I can ensure that, do you really care how long this vehicle lasts? Why do you care? As far as you're concerned, you're making more money on a monthly basis. And you have enough money left that ensures that you will be able to get your next vehicle on board. Why are we even concerned about this? Mindset change is going to happen. This whole concept of ownership, and there's a lot that has been written about it, ownership versus releasing transportation as a service. Even if you own it, I don't believe in ownership. I think the good thing, but ownership that leads to a positive change. There are various models, and that's why I said that innovation is not just about making the vehicle, but innovation in the entire ecosystem, for your charging vendors, for the financing vendors, for the service and sales. There has to be innovation, and you constantly start seeing those innovations now from Altigreen. When we expand our network, we've raised, like I said, we've raised 300 crores from very, very good investors. 6M, Reliance invested in us, Exponential, investors from the US and Singapore Metro, the urban transportation part.
This was the first major round you raised?
Yes. First major round. Obviously, I always run a funded company. We're very, very glad that a lot of investors came on board and they had supported us, but never anyone that was frivolous, like taking money from builders or diamond merchants. Didn't happen.
And like, you've invested in a manufacturing facility. Like, do you manufacture in-house?
Of course. Yes. Like I said, everything from steel to wheel owned by us. Obviously, I have an entire ecosystem of partners who are working with me. So I've not created a foundry where I am doing aluminum die-cast. So when Hindalco will provide me with the aluminum die-cast parts, right? I have invested in tooling. Yes. So in my partners, I invest in tooling. So they have to cater to my standards of quality and they will supply me only for my IP related things. So I have an entire ego. I don't make my headlights. I don't make my tires and my wheels. And brake line. Why should I make?
No, that's nobody makes that. Even Maruti works with OEMs.
Yeah, I mean, they make millions. But the core electric stuff, anything that is remotely, the motor, the controller, the DC-DC, harnesses, display cluster, the telematics stack, the gearbox, the battery, the battery management system, anything that is remotely electric on which my vehicle has to depend is under Altigreen control, start to finish.
So where is your factory?
It's all in Bangalore. Yeah, we're all in Bangalore. Of course, it's a smaller unit because we wanted to we've got about 250 odd vehicles on the road. And like I said, they've been tested. Now with this funding was to expand.
Basically, right now you have achieved product market fit in a way, and now you're entering the growth.
We have significant orders. We have orders for over 5,000 vehicles, and that's what gave us the confidence. These orders are backed by advances. This is not like someone saying, "Haan to bana de, main le lunga." Backed by advances, because I needed to be, absolutely certain. And those are the ones that ensure that, to the investors also, that give them a lot of confidence that this is really good things. Now we are now expanding our manufacturing, opening up a new factory, expanding our manufacturing capacity all the way to it will be in the vicinity of Bangalore. We're not going too far from it, but we are currently out scouting for really nice, large areas where we would be able to get local manpower. Once again, our mission is not to create a monolithic factory where lakhs of vehicles can be made. I don't like that concept. Industry 4.0, we will build smaller, I call them mini factories in different geographies of India, so that I can take the, SOPs from the government of India or the state governments that want to attract electric vehicle manufacturers. I also get access to local manpower. So I'm doing something for that region instead of saying it's a big industry. And that becomes my strategy also as a global, when I step out of India. All the components and parts will be made in one place. That ensures that the quality is perfect. But then the assembly can happen with partners in different parts of the country. And it helps reduce my logistic cost also. Today, my logistic cost as a percentage of the total vehicle cost is very high. So what can you do, right? It's a smaller vehicle. It's a much cheaper vehicle, right? So the percentage increases, but fuel cost and transportation cost, it's still a 4-wheeler vehicle. It doesn't matter whether it's on 3 wheels or it's a 4-meter vehicle. So cost of transportation is the same, whether you're transporting that or you're transporting a 13 lakh rupee vehicle. So that is a big difference. And hence you have to go all these kinds of things. So innovation doesn't stop, Bob. That you are very clear.
What is your current monthly production capacity and what is the target?
Yeah. So currently our production capacity is around 6,000 vehicles a year, which is moving to 40,000 a year. That's where we are moving to. We will be present in...
By when? Like 40,000, by when will you?
Oh, this has to be in this year itself. So within 2022, financial year 22-23, we will definitely have reached that capacity. That's number one. Number two, our expansion plan across India, moving from the 9 cities that we are in to over 60 cities that we will be present in. That's going to happen in the same financial year. So lots of targets, financing partners coming on board, large financing partners that ensures that today 3-wheelers are being financed at 24%. Can you imagine? You buy a car and you get financing at 10%. Poor guy whose livelihood depends on it buys a vehicle where he gets financed at 24%. You see that somewhere there's a huge injustice going on, right? So you've got to fix that. You want to make the driver feel like a hero. I am really, it's obviously helping him. He's getting 120 kilometers. He does 2 shifts now. And the reason now he's saying that I'm spending 14 hours on the road, but he's saying I'm earning a lot more money. And I said, but why are you struggling so much? You're making more money anyway. You're in doing this. He said, so no, there's no fatigue. There's no fatigue. There's no engine noise. There's no vibration, micro vibration, right? So because he's not tired, he said, right? So he will work in Coke and he will work somewhere else and he will make some more money in the process of doing it. Great, yeah, he's making more money. That is the change. It's not about technology. It's never about that. It's about making change happen. Comes back to the same thing that happened at HP. What do you want to be remembered for? Do you change anything in terms of? I think there has to be a drive to that, and that is what inspired most of the people and the new people who are coming on board. That this is the company that they want to be. It's not driven just solely by revenue. Of course, it's very important. I know what it takes to create employee wealth, investor wealth, and I will do that too.
So one of Tesla's biggest challenges was actually wrapping up their capacity, and they had invested in robotic manufacturing and stuff like that. So what's your strategy to ramp up capacity?
Yeah, so we're at a different level entirely. But when such things happen, these have to become learnings for other entrepreneurs. So it's clear that, there is difficulty. Obviously, the difficulty happens when you're making hundreds of thousands or millions of vehicles, right? It doesn't happen on day one, but this is bound to happen. And hence, either we plan to create gigafactories and all that, or we say, no, my approach is going to be mini factories. So then you can have parallelism. Think of many factories. You have 4 different partners and 4 different geographies. You have a blueprint ready. Boss, 40,000 गाड़ी बनाने के लिए, this is the blueprint. Exactly. यहाँ से door होगा, यहाँ से ये होगा, यहाँ पे ये, this is the store, this is how incoming, this is the quality process, this is the way, this is when this will come, this is the length of your conveyor belt. It's a well-oiled, well-functioning blueprint. Boss, यही replicate करने का. Nothing, no team, nothing. Are you my partner? Are you willing to do this?
Like a McDonaldization, the way McDonald's has that playbook.
You can start 4, 5, 6, whatever. As long as you're cognizant that the part supply, your component supply has to be rock solid. And that's something that we're focusing on, right? So the partnerships that we're putting in place are all people who can scale rapidly. Our own growth, our own parts that we're making has to scale very rapidly. We're cognizant of that. That is where our focus is. So it's a dual thing. And that's why it's when you come up with these kinds of, it's not just about putting a vision and creating one vehicle and then saying, okay, I need millions of dollars to come in. Very seldom will it happen. You have to show, now you have to show what you've done at the back and what you intend to do going forward. So there's a lot more that has to be done to do this. I'm really happy that our investors came forward. It's a very good sign for the entire ecosystem of electric vehicles, because now with this kind of money, people are saying, boss, the space is serious. We are not going to be the only guys. We are not the only guys. A lot of very good companies, bad companies, everyone is going to get funded because it starts a sector. There is serious money coming in. A brand like Reliance, it's not going to be a frivolous thing, an activity. So a lot of things, very aggressive in terms of wants to make it a household name, right? Altigreen, why not?
What is the price of one vehicle and how much do you earn per vehicle? Like, what are your economics on it?
So when volumes are low, then gross margins are very tiny, if at all. We've always maintained that we are positive on every vehicle that we make. That's all we always claim, but it's tiny. But we're just glad that on every vehicle, we might make 1 rupee. But that definitely happened. We made a much superior vehicle. We are probably the most expensive vehicle in India today. Yet, we have investors who are supporting it. Yet. The price is close to about 4 lakh rupees. So it's about 50.
How does it compare to diesel? How much does a diesel cost?
Diesel, so that's what I was saying. So about 50 to 55,000 rupees more than diesel.
Which is not a very big premium. One last question. The financing part, are you looking at that as a revenue area as well, like the fintech, or are you looking at that just as a enabler?
Once again, we are very clear that we are an OEM and we are putting together an ecosystem of partners. In that partnership, financing companies are going to play a very key role. So I have to work with them to ensure that I'm looking at my end customer and saying, what is in it for him? What is the best thing that I can do with them? How can I give the financing company the confidence that, boss, this is the company that you want to bet on? Please do start investing in electric vehicles. Please do start investing in 3-wheeler companies. There's this fear that maybe this will be a non-performing asset. What if this doesn't happen? I can allay their fears and suspicions through the network that I have created, through the platform that I have created. I'm using the word platform. That ensures that, okay, I have a customer, I have a logistic company, I have now this guy who's going to buy the vehicle. Can I bring all these together and make sure that, boss, your money is going to be safe? Anyway, you can give them data for the risk underwriting. Like you can show them that this is the earning that he's receiving from this vehicle, and your telematics, your IoT, because the vehicle is IoT enabled. So how many kilometers? Perfect. So we're able to tell them that, boss, in case they default for the wrong reasons, not because of the right reason, but wrong reason, if they default, and just turn the thing off. Finished. Even if it's not the ignition on, I can turn it off. Even if the ignition is off, I can turn the vehicle off. So, I mean, there are lots of things that we can do. So,
Right.
That we keep messing around.
So, that makes it a safer.
Yes, financing is going to be extremely key, and it's not just in customer financing and dealer financing. It's the entire ecosystem that is charging charger plan. There are lots of things that need to happen in the space. And we're working very, very closely with these partners. You'll start seeing those things beginning to unfurl. Yeah.
Amazing. And what is your turnover estimated for this year?
It's too early to say, but we do intend to sell about 15,000 vehicles in financial year 22.
And that brings us to the end of this conversation. You would be delighted to learn that since we recorded this conversation with Dr. Saran, Altigreen has gone on to set up a 3 lakh square feet plant near Bangalore with a capacity to produce 55,000 EVs per year.